Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host. Liam Picks Fights. Today, we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 114. Kevin Vallejos versus Josh Emmett. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got the perennial top 10, Josh Emmett, the man with the most knockouts in UFC featherweight history, taking on someone who is, I believe, 17 years younger in Kevin Vallejos, representing the next generation. Liam Picks Fights. Welcome back to Half the Battle.
Thank you so much for having me, my man. I'm excited to break down the card. We got a lot of fights, and we got a lot of violent fights as well. I'm excited to see if we can find some spots we agree on. I haven't heard your takes or anything yet this week, so I'm really excited to see what you have to say, my man.
Great. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get right down to business, because in this main event, we got Josh Emmett. He's 19-6, taking on Kevin Vallejos, who is 17-1. Currently, they got it Vallejos minus 650. The comeback on Josh Emmett is plus 475. So like I alluded to, Josh Emmett is 41 years old. Kevin Vallejos is 24. Vallejos an inch taller at 5'7", but it's actually Emmett that's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage at 70 inches of reach. So, Liam, this isn't the first massive age gap we've had in a while, because last week, you remember what Mr. Rosas did to Hobby Fonch? Gave him a bit of a tour of the octagon. Not much damage, but definitely controlled him. Now we got a different kind of matchup, same age gap, but the difference here is that Vallejos is going to look to box up Josh Emmett. And one can make the argument, hey, that's exactly the kind of fight Emmett wants. Emmett's got the most knockdowns in the history of this weight class. But I got to tell you something, Liam. I felt like that Yusuf Zalal fight, of course, you give all the credit to Yusuf Zalal. I mean, you did your thing. But when does Yusuf Zalal run through people, and when does Josh Emmett get ran through? To me, that was a clear sign that Emmett's seen better days. I mean, if the 41 years of age doesn't tell you that, I think that last performance against Zalal should tell you that. And then Vallejos, I mean, for a young gun, firstly, we talk about how, he's just a kid, the age and that, but like, look at this guy's physique for just being a kid. He looks like a grown ass man, Liam, and to go out there against Giga Chikadze, it's one thing to beat Giga. Giga's maybe had cardio issues down the stretch, whatnot, but to knock him out, like, okay, Liam, like I take note of things like that. And that spin he hit on Giga Chikadze was so well timed. I'm pretty impressed with this kid. And I like that they're letting him take out that old guard, usher in the new era. Come on, man. Like, I've been saying Josh Emmett's been done for a while, This isn't that bum Bryce Mitchell anymore. This is the next generation. And honestly, I think this price tag is warranted, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going to largely agree with you on this matchup. When you look at a guy like Josh Emmett, he went on what you would describe as like a sun run as an underdog. He won a ton of fights as a dog. People didn't give him a ton of respect at certain points in his career, but it's almost like regression to the mean, right? He's now 41 years of age. He's still a huge dog in these fights. And the difference is, now there's a lot of young up-and-coming killers in this division, like a Kevin Vallejos, whereas you look at a Bryce Mitchell, he's gone and left the division, right? He's made the decision to cut the extra pounds. I don't think Vallejos would really be able to do that, right? He's bricked up, muscular kid. And when you look at, those highlights that you're showing, right? Vallejos is willing to hop on the back, willing to take some of those opportunities. He wants to go out there and bang it out on the feet, but he's willing to mix it up in different phases. Josh Emmett, he's 41 years of age. He's not a guy that mixes that into his repertoire, right? He's not a guy that's gone out there and shown that kind of grappling game. And what you see instead from Josh Emmett, one thing I haven't heard anybody mention this week, they talk about one knockout loss, and it was a brutal one, guys. If you've never seen that one, oh my goodness. Jeremy Stephens, he's got a crazy KO list in the UFC. He took him to the cleaners, right? And it was an absolutely vicious knockout. Nearly got disqualified right before that for that knee to the grounded opponent. Missed by just an inch. They kept it going, and then he absolutely finished the job. But when you look at Josh Emmett against Yair Rodriguez, I bet Yair Rodriguez via knockout in that fight wanted to puke in my hands. Yair hurts him so bad. Flying knee, I think it was, kick to the body. Emmett basically takes a desperation shot, panic shot, and Yair falls into an easy triangle, cashes the 18-1 for my guy, Pepe Sylvia. Shout out to the King of New York. But when you look at a matchup like this, I see Josh Emmett, 41 years of age. The knockout losses should be coming more and more, right? After 38 years of age, the data tells us people are going to start getting knocked out very frequently. And then you look at a guy like Josh Emmett. Has he been in risk-averse fights? No, he's been in fight of the night wars. He's been in crazy bangers. He took 5 rounds of absolute hellacious beating from Ilia Topuria. I think multiple 10-7 rounds could have been warranted there. So I think ultimately enough's been said. I think Kevin Vallejos wins this fight. I think he's going to finish Josh Emmett. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a club and sub, a accumulation of damage, round 3, round 4, something like that. The danger factor, I think, with this price tag is Vallejos' cardio, right? We have seen a couple times where his cardio looked a little bit shaky as a fight got difficult. But I also think one of the things that we know goes in fighters as they get older is their cardio. So can we rely on Josh Emmett to go out there and push a faster pace than Vallejos? I really don't know that we can. So ultimately, I think Vallejos wins this one way or the other, but I think more often than not, it is probably a violent finish for him.
No, down the line, we'll have to worry about that. But to your point, okay, you're referencing the Gene Silva fight, but like, can Emmett take what Gene Silva took in that first round? I don't think so at all. And you talk about how after 38, more likely to get knocked out. Okay, what about after 40? What do the numbers say about that?
How about after 41?
Right, exactly.
The chart just keeps going up and up and up.
I felt like the Yusuf Zalal fight was the clearest signs that you could get. I mean, I know that Zalal's been tapping out some guys here that are kind of on their way out and whatnot, but like to just run through Emmett in the first minute, like one doesn't simply do that. Like you referenced the Jeremy Stevens fight. Jeremy Stevens got dropped in that first round. He had to go through some stuff, and that was simply first UFC L time for Emmett. But like to just get him out of there like it's no one's business in the first minute, I think that do not be surprised when Vallejos comes out here and knocks out the man with the most knockouts in UFC featherweight history. So yeah. Now, next up, we got the co-main event of the evening in the strawweight division. We got Amanda Lemos. She's 15-5-1, taking on Gillian Robertson, who's 16-8. Currently, they got it Gillian minus 195. The comeback on Amanda Lemos is plus 170. Another significant age gap. Liam, 38 for Lemos, 30 for Gillian. Gillian an inch taller at 5'5", but it's Lemos that has a 2-inch reach advantage at 65 inches of reach. So, Liam, they're supposed to fight a few months back, and I picked Gillian there. I bet Gillian there, but granted, she was, I think, like minus 165-ish. Now I got to pay 30 more cents on it, but hey, you said something about 38 years old. This girl is 38 years old, but to her credit, she's a massive strawweight. We're talking about someone that came into the UFC at bantamweight, right? She was fighting like Leslie Smith up 2 weight class, didn't just drop to flyweight, dropped all the way down to strawweight, and she's one of the more physical, one of the heaviest hitters. Nice little opportunistic guillotine too. I've paid attention, but I gotta say, you try that on Gillian. I mean, unless Gillian just panics, that's all Gillian needs to, hey, we're going to survive a little bit. We're going to fight the hands. We're going to let you burn your arms out. And now we're on top of you. Now you got the person with, check this out, the most finishes in women's MMA history on top of you. I'm not talking about Ronda Rousey. I'm not talking about Amanda Nunes. I'm not talking about Cyborg. I'm talking about Gillian Robertson, Liam picks fights.
Gillian Robertson has been a hidden gem for me because I have, seen that she's much more violent and aggressive with her ground and pound than a lot of women in the UFC. So has she burned me a handful of times? I think it was Luana Pinheiro, took a couple of elbows below the belt, but, didn't end up getting finished in that fight. So, shout out to her. But you look at a lot of these other women, Gillian's able to get them out of there late because she just beats up on them, takes their will to fight away from them. And I think when you look at Amanda Lemos, she's a very hot and cold fighter. She's had some looks where it's like, man, she's getting better. She's showing a better product. But I think the Suarez fight, the context of that is that Suarez has kind of just looked like a diminished version of herself recently. And that's with all due respect to a fighter that I really had high hopes for, that I certainly respect her body of work, everything she's overcome, the adversity. But I just think that you have to put a little context around how that fight looked. And maybe she's just having a hard time wrestling everybody, right? She was having a hard time wrestling Montana De La Rosa. Meanwhile, Gillian Robertson has just been a picture of consistency lately in the UFC, taking down almost everybody that she's fighting, controlling them for large periods of time, dominating from the top position. If she's not getting you out of there, she's spending her energy in the fight trying to get you out of there with ground and pound, with submission attempts. So I think that Amanda Lemos, I'm old enough to remember when Jessica Andrade was plus 600 to submit this woman, and she grabs her in a standing head and arm choke, and she had a reaction that just looked like pure terror, like she had seen a ghost. Like it's the kind of thing that for me is always like a red flag in the grappling department. And Zhang Wei Li did everything but submit her, right? Like put her in every position you'd want and just couldn't quite get her out of there. I do think Lemos is a tough woman, but I think Gillian, the difference is she's more than willing to settle for a good position to beat you up from. And then if you did, you either decide like, hey, I want to get out of here, here's my neck, or she's going to keep beating you up and stay on top. So I feel like Gillian Robertson has gotten much better. If she can't get the takedowns, hey, Lemos is going to look like a great dog, but I think Gillian Robertson gets the takedowns. And I think that when she's on top, she's going to take full advantage of it.
Just to backtrack for a second to the main event, because you were talking about Topuria and Emmett, and I forgot to bring up this point. You were like, there should have been multiple 10-7 rounds. Well, one of the judges had a 10-7 round and a 10-8 round. And let me ask you something. If you each had to guess off the top of your head, what do you think the most lopsided scorecard was on that fight?
50-43.
Close. Check this out, my friend. So Mr. Chris Lee, scored it 50-42 for Ilia Topuria against Josh Emmett. So, hey, man, like that's a ass whooping if I've ever seen one. But I digress. Back to this, just because I forgot to bring that up when you brought it up. But yeah, listen, I like that Robertson's been through the ups, been through the downs. You remember when she was on The Ultimate Fighter, Eddie Alvarez would always talk about it. Well, if she can't get her takedown, she's going to pack it in and quit. And to go from that person to, breaking the record for the most finishes in women's UFC history, that speaks volumes. And she's only 30 years old, Liam. She's entering her prime now. Who doesn't want to see Mackenzie versus Gillian for the undisputed belt? I mean, some high-level grappling. I think the UFC wants that fight. I think the fans want that fight. And shout out to Lemos. I'm a fan of women that drop other women and choke other women out, dangle off necks. It's great to see. But man, my angle of fading fighters on their way out is not stopping this weekend. And I got Gillian Robertson to come out here and do what she does. Give aggressive, what does she call them? Throat cuddles? Is that what she calls them? Yeah. Well, whatever she calls them, I'm going with that. Okay. Now, featured bout in the light heavyweight division. We got a matchup between Oumar Sy. He's 12-1. Taking on Ion Cutelaba, who's 19-11-1. Currently, they got it Oumar Sy minus 205. The comeback on Ion Cutelaba is plus 175. So Ion, 2 years older at 32. Oumar is 3 inches taller at 6'4", but I actually think he's more like 6'5", 6'6". And he has a significant 8-inch reach advantage at 83 inches of reach. So I got to give Cutelaba some credit. I mean, not just for the fact that he's paid his dues. He's been around the UFC a long time, fought some of the best. But I feel like right now he's actually in his career best form. I know he's coming off that loss to Bukauskas. Honestly, Liam, I low-key had it 29-28 for Cutelaba. But regardless of all that, I still think that this current run is the best version of him we've seen. But this is also the lowest price on Oumar Sy we've ever seen. So what's your opinion on this matchup?
It's a tricky one for me to get a beat on. I agree with you that I thought Cutelaba won the last fight with Modestas Bukauskas. I thought that Oumar Sy was going to do enough to get the job done against Alonzo Menefield. For me, that's when I was a little bit put off him as a prospect, because you have to be able to, win at your A game, I feel. And basically he's a big, strong, athletic guy that can go out there and bully people, kind of throw them around, be physical with them. And against Alonzo Menefield, another guy who's big and physical and strong in the light heavyweight division, he wasn't really able to get off with his game, and he was a lot more reserved on offense. And Cutelaba has so many faults as a fighter, but when he has, his positives, he has great wins on his resume. When he goes on spastic offense, he can beat almost anybody in the first round. Put people on skates, get 10-8s, that kind of thing. He's pretty good at that. And he's not a guy that's easy to out physical and just dominate and bully like that. But he is outsized and outmanned here. And in the small cage at the apex, would it stun me if Oumar Sy is kind of just able to lean on him, push him into the fence, kind of do or even win a similar fight to Modestas, right? Just outstriking him a little bit, keeping it close, touch and go, 55 strikes to, 49 strikes type of deal. I could see that kind of fight where Oumar Sy wins it, just by bullying him around a little bit, maybe backing him up with the power. But ultimately, I just don't feel good about Oumar Sy at these odds. So this is not a fight I'll be betting on. I'll do a little bit more tape study to write up my article, but I feel like Oumar Sy, he's a guy that's for me on like favorite fade watch, because I do think he's going to drop the ball again. But I had identified him as a prospect just because light heavyweight, pretty thin division. And if you're a big, strong, athletic guy, if they could teach you anything, if they could get you some skills, they could turn you into something. So for Cutelaba, congrats to him on like a career turnaround, making better decisions, doing things a little bit better. But without the pure chaos early, he's kind of drawing a little bit more thin, even though he's now pacing himself to go 15 minutes. That's taking away a little bit of the dynamic offense, in my opinion.
So you said this fight might remind you of, or it might play out similar to the Cutelaba-Bukauskas fight. Now, you know what fight I think this might play out like? The Kennedy and Nzechukwu versus Cutelaba fight. Why do I say that? Because Oumar Sy, similar to Kennedy and Nzechukwu, both 6'5". They got that exact same body type. And also they're these kind of guys where physically speaking, like, goddamn, but like the technique needs to catch up to the physical attributes. And once that happens, I guess with Kennedy, maybe kind of a lost cause, but with C, if it can happen, that'd be amazing to see, no pun intended. But like, I just feel like Cutelaba is going to struggle with the range here. I do expect improvements from Oumar Sy, like fight by fight. Like I know, listen, I was in attendance for that Menafield fight. That was in Atlanta. It was terrible. It was awful. But like these kind of things happen to young prospects, especially that have never taken setbacks before, that have never fought a certain level of competition before. It's part of the paying dues process. It is what it is, as ugly as that fight was. I mean, I had to wake up my best friend that was sitting right next to me during that fight. I brought my dad to see the fights, hey dad, this is the stuff I love. And he's like, this is the shit you watch. It's like, but that being said, that was still a dues paying moment for Oumar Sy. And with Cutelaba, I don't want to say he's a finished product. Look, he's only 32 years old, but we know what he brings to the table. We know exactly who Ion Cutelaba is. He's been in the UFC since he was a literal kid. I think he may be in the UFC 10 plus years at this point. I mean, that Misha Serkunov fight had to have been 2013, 2014, 2015 at the latest. You know what I'm saying? So we've been seeing this guy for 10 years minimum.
June 2016.
Oh, wow. I was wrong. Okay. So we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. That was his debut, right? Misha Serkunov?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, he dropped him in the first round, and then he got his face cranked in the third, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so I do expect a more mature version of C here. You got the setback under your belt. You bounce back since then. Now you're coming out here. You're no longer minus 650. You're no longer minus 900. And you have a guy where even though he's in his career best form, the blueprint's been laid out on how to beat him, whereas we may be seeing improvements from C every single time. So I'm going to go with C here. Maybe I'm getting my hopes up a little bit, but I really think we're going to see a better performance from C, no pun intended. So that's my pick here. Now, moving on to the featherweight division. I'm super pumped about this because we got Andre Fili. He's 25-12. Taking on Jose Delgado, who's 10-2 or 11-1, depending how you score that Nathaniel Wood fight. Currently, they got it. Jose Delgado minus 325. The comeback on Andre Fili's plus 275. So no longer is Fili the younger man. In fact, Fili is 8 years older at 35. Both men 5'11". Both men have a 74-inch reach. Usually Andre Fili gets to enjoy being the long, lanky guy. And not here, my friend. Not here, my friend. And, I made a little... maybe a joke, maybe not a joke about how he could be 11-1 because of the Nathaniel Wood fight. But let me say this. More importantly than who you scored it for or this or that, he won, he didn't win, whatever. To me, what I care about is those are the kind of learning experiences and lessons that a kid like Delgado needs to take things to that next level. And not only that, for a first UFC L, I thought he performed great. Like I thought, hey, for first UFC L against the guy who's been in the UFC for 10 years, who's got more than double the experience as you, and who's an ultra technical guy. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. So, and personally, I did score it for Delgado, like most people did. But again, put that on the back burner. To me, I feel like we're going to be seeing a much better version of him every single fight. And the thing I like about this guy Delgado so much is he puts on the exact kind of fights that the fans want to see. He doesn't care who you are, where you're from, who you know. This guy's going to go out there. He's going to be vicious. He's going to be violent, and he's going to try to get you out of there from the second the bell rings to the second the ref is pulling him off his opponent. I like the fact that, when he got that step up against Nathaniel Wood, he didn't have a staring contest. He wasn't high-fiving and hugging. He wasn't asking for selfies in the middle of the octagon. This guy went out there and tried to destroy Nathaniel Wood, just like he does to the lower-level guys that got him to this point. So I'm super stoked about the direction this guy's headed in, and I think that the sky's the limit for a kid like Jose Delgado. And now that you had that veteran test, now they're giving you another veteran test against Andre Fili, who I think is a bit on the flaky side. You still have to be on a certain level to beat a guy like Andre Fili, but I think this is a great matchup for my man Jose Delgado. And check this out. Look who just joined. Is that my boy Wiz? Is that my boy Wiz MMA?
Yo, listen, we're safe. The car is driving us home. I'm here to do some breakdowns. I didn't do too much tape, I will be honest, but I'll give my best effort. I usually have these fights memorized too. So
yeah, hold on. Hey, what are you weighing, bro? You're looking lean.
Oh, I think the last time I weighed myself was on Friday. I was at 173.
Holy shit. I weigh more than you?
That's that Ramadan diet.
Dude, looking good, bro. But hey, tape, no tape, whatever. I know you know who Andre Fili and Jose Delgado are. So why don't you tell me your thoughts on this matchup, my friend?
Yeah, Andre Fili actually was early on in this camp, was training out with us here at Rising Suns Muay Thai for a couple of days. So just polishing up some of the striking before our gym moves to a different city. Now, looking at both guys, Andre Fili is someone who I considered to be almost like a gatekeeper division at this point in his career. He's shown a lot of fragility in terms of his chin. You can rely on him to be game and go out there and strike with everyone he wants to, but what happens is his chin usually gets touched up and doesn't really absorb the damage all that well anymore. He can go to his wrestling if he needs to, but I think the point of emphasis in this fight is Jose Delgado's pace, and it's more of a weaponized pace than everything. I think he won that Nathaniel Wood fight last time out. Personally, I scored it for him. But just the sheer fact that he was able to go all 3 rounds for the first time in his career at that type of pace, it speaks volumes. And I think he goes out there and he finishes Andre Fili by knockout in the first round. I love the under 2.5 here.
Well, that's music to my ears because I also bet the under 2.5. I played it straight to win a unit, played it last night. And I'm honestly, Liam picks fights on a fade Andre Fili world tour. And when I go on my world tours, Kevin Holland, Jan Blachowicz, they tend to do well. And right now, this one's doing well. Joe Anderson, Brito, plus 250. Are you kidding me? And now, I have to play a little chalk, but here's why I played it under 2.5, Liam and Wiz, because I thought it was going to be set at 1.5. They set it at 2.5. We'll see what happens, but I think that's recency bias from, Delgado going the distances last fight. And plus, he's taking on a serious veteran. But that being said, I also think he gets him out of there in short order. What do you think, Liam picks fights?
Yeah, I think matchups are everything. Styles make fights is the old expression, and timing is everything as well. I think if Andre Fili was 30 years of age and maybe was a little bit more dialed in, and the chin hadn't been touched a couple of times and these certain things, then maybe you'd feel a little bit better about it. But I feel like the book is out a little bit on Andre Fili, and there's good and bad that comes with that, right? He can go out there and give most guys an honest fight, but you go back and look, Christian Rodriguez, he's struggled with length. He's struggled with tall, long guys. Up at 145, it's been especially apparent, right? Julian Erosa, a guy who's a 50-50 guy in the UFC, right? About 500, a good fighter, a solid out, but a guy that can be beat by the best guys. And he lost that fight. And in a similar fashion, he lost to Andre Fili, veteran guys that are long and awkward and really know how to move with you on the ground. So he can't just dominate those positions and counter grapple. And I think that when you look at a matchup like this, Delgado, he probably is the one who's going to have to do a little anti-grappling and, stuff like that in this matchup, because Fili's been mixing in the takedowns and trying to slow down fights that way. But he did that against Mel Costa. And then, he's reacting in slow motion as the guillotine threat presents itself. So I feel like Fili, a little bit lackadaisical maybe on the ground. I think that would be a fair way to put it. And Delgado, on the other hand, I think is just a guy that's going to be extremely aggressive in all positions. Like if he's on his back, I think he's going to be throwing elbows, continuing to remain dangerous, work back up to his feet. For me, I don't love the price on the money line, but what did you guys say the price was on the under 2.5?
Minus 180, minus 175-ish.
I'd almost prefer that. Buy down a little bit. And lean into the violence. But yeah, I would also look towards just Delgado ITD to see what the price disparity would be there, because Fili, his last 2 wins are split decisions. Delgado does put it on the line, but he's got a young chin, pretty fresh, and unless Fili clips him with a head kick, I feel like Delgado could see 15 minutes with Fili here.
But real quick,
losing effort. Yes.
Is he going to be able to get a head kick off on a dude the same height as him? Because he's used to going with these guys that are 5'6",
True story. So I think that could be a big difference maker. And I like Delgado, as a younger guy who could probably just take the shots better. So might be wild while it lasts, but I just feel like he's going to come out ahead and probably finish this one.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be very interesting. And another thing, earlier in the week, round 1 for Delgado was plus 250. I don't know if that's been steamed. I haven't checked, but yeah, lots of ways you can approach this fight. And I'm very much looking forward to it, my friends. The Fade Andre Fili World Tour carries on. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between the debutant Marwan Rahiki. He's 7-0, taking on Hardwick, who's 13-4-1. Currently, they got it Marwan Rahiki minus 270. The comeback on Hardwick is plus 230. So another big age gap. Marwan's 23, Harry's 31. 8-year age gap. Both men 5'8". Marwan has a 1-inch reach advantage at 72 inches of reach. So, my boy Wiz, firstly, I got a lot to say about Marwan Rahiki, but I'm very curious what you think. How do you tout and scout this upcoming prospect, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember Marwan Rahiki being one of my favorite prospects to come on to Dana White's Contender Series last season for multiple reasons. But Dan, I'm a striker at heart, and just seeing this guy's tape when I was taping him in the Contender Series, he's comfortable out of both stances. He has an arsenal that's completely different in southpaw than it is from orthodox, and I love that. That's my kind of fighter. That's who I am as a fighter. I can wing it from both stances. So when I see someone that is able to fight from both stances, really utilize both the kicks, the hands, the jabs from both stances, and able to mix it up with power, it really confuses an opponent. And without breaking down more of his game here, looking at Hardwick, this guy has outlasted a lot of the Cage Warriors competition, and he kind of is one of those, you're going to have to really belt the ass to beat me, and I'm going to outlast you every single time. And that's how he's made his career. He just ends up outlasting these guys. He takes the damage, and when they start to gas out, he puts it on them. I just don't think he's going to be able to take what Marwan Rahiki is going to be giving him this Saturday night. And that's not a surprise. The line at minus 270, 280 currently, it speaks volumes on what the market thinks about Rahiki and what the public thinks about him too. But I think the market is accurate and spot on here. I think Rahiki is going to be able to do whatever he wants in this fight, in the striking realm. And in the grappling, this guy is pretty clean as well. I think Cowie Fernandez looked like the second coming of Jonathan Martinez against
second coming of Jose Aldo.
Yeah, second coming of Jose Aldo. Martinez with the leg kicks. It made him look so much better than he actually is. But I think that's more of a testament to Hardwick being the type of fighter that will try to just outlast you, and he will take the damage. And when the things aren't going too well and it's not Cage Warriors, you're under the bright lights of the UFC, you just cannot afford to be that kind of fighter anymore and lack defense. So I think Marwan Rahiki is going to go out there and finish this guy in under 2.5 rounds. But yeah, for me, I can only look towards Rahiki. I think this guy is a star in the making, and he's young. So watch out for this kid as he fills out his frame.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going to have the style where you take that ass whooping up front and then you put it on guys late when they gas out, that's cool and all, but like you have to have a certain level of athleticism and durability at the UFC level. Like that dude, Manoel Sosa, that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, that guy can have that style and make it work. But this little mongoloid looking pipsqueak that's completely unathletic, like, are you kidding me right now? But anyways, Liam Pick Fights, tell me your thoughts and I'll go last.
Oh boy, I have an inclination of which side you're leaning towards, but in any case, when you look at Rahiki, I was pretty impressed with this guy coming on to Contender Series. My notes talk about his composure, multifaceted striking approach, targets all levels of the body, and those are the kind of things that I want to see from somebody when you're going to be fighting Hardwick, right? Like we just saw that mixing things up to different levels of the body had him really confused. His defense was all out of sorts. Do you want to give him a little bit of credit because he took it on short notice and he's stepping up a weight class? And frankly, Kawe Fernandez kicks like a horse. Like you just don't want to get kicked by that guy at all, period. And I think he showed some toughness, some heart. But, Corey Sandhagen had a great quote at a UFC press conference where he just said, like, at a certain level of fighting, like just wanting to win is not enough anymore. Like you have to have skills. You have to know what to do. You have to have built-in mechanisms. And I think that when you look at these guys, Rahiki, cleaner fighter for me, better striker for me. The grappling, I don't really have as good of a beat on. I feel like it looked good regionally. Don't know as much what to make of that. I like that he's able to fight through adversity. That's a positive attribute for me. But I will just say, like, I thought going into the fight for Hardwick that he could maybe have some success in the UFC if he was in his proper weight class, if he had, full preparation. I just thought, I was like, this is a disaster. He's going to get, lit up in this fight. This feels to me like a fight where he can at least show more of himself. Maybe they go a round or two. Maybe they get to move around, and he doesn't just look completely outclassed. We saw Rahiki in his last fight have some exchanges, be a little wild, show that young fighter energy. But I just think Rahiki is the better built athlete. And so I think he's going to come out ahead in those exchanges. I think eventually Hardwick, like in his last fight, will probably fall. Hopefully this time they don't have to carry him out of the cage. That was not good optics.
Unless you're betting Rahiki. But but listen, guys, I'm going to talk about Rahiki's striking style, the swag, the aura, the potential, all that in a second. Here's what I want to talk about first. You want to talk about a fighter? You want to talk about a warrior? Hey, go put on that fight he had on Contender Series. If you want to see what kind of heart this guy has, if you want to, people are like, oh, he's just a pretty boy. What happens when you put it on him? What happens when you put it on him? Go put on that Contender Series fight is what happens when you put it on him. You know what that fight reminded me of, gentlemen? Do you guys remember a fight in LFA between Gabriel Moscatinho Santos and Marcio Barbosa, two guys who are now in the UFC? Well, in that first round, the same thing happened to Gabriel Santos. He was getting dropped all over the place in a way where it's like, hey, if you just cover up and let the ref intervene, no one's going to hold it against you because the shots that you ate, like, dude, live to fight another day. And this guy, made a promise to himself, like if you want to get me out of there, you have to kill me because I'm willing to fight till the bitter end. And if you show me one sign of weakness, you start to slow down on me, I'm the one who's going to kill you. And I feel like Rahiki brings that mindset to the table. So again, I'll talk about the striking, the swag, all that in a second, but the warrior spirit, because sometimes guys that are ultra talented can be front runners. This guy is the furthest thing from a front runner. And when I see that kind of heart on display, I take note. To a lot of people, it's like, oh, he's hittable, this and that. Dude, he's fucking 23. That's the kind of shit you go back to the gym with your striking coaches. You fix up a little technical nuances, you come back better. But one thing that cannot be taught is this right here and this right here. And this kid has that and then some. But now let's talk about the striking and the swag. I mean, look at this guy, bro. He's got the look. He's got the style. He's proficient from both stances. He throws with intent. to viciously, violently hurt you, but he's technical too. I like everything about Marwan Rahiki, and the fact that you're going to see in one of these fights, he gets taken down and he shows nice fundamental jiu-jitsu. He doesn't have to take my fundamental jiu-jitsu class. This guy hit a disgusting hip bump sweep. You saw that judo throw. Wait till he gets taken down in one of these fights coming up. But I mean, these combos are just absolutely disgusting. And when he smells blood, look, he gets taken down here. Now check this out. He's about to get taken. You saw the Jose Aldo, that body shot to the leg kick. You know what I'm saying? Look, hip bump sweep. Like, dude, give this guy till he's 25, 26. And I think that he is going to make serious waves in the UFC. Not to mention, the guy he fought on Contender Series, it's not like some pipsqueak like Hardwick dropped him. That dude that dropped him was like an African freak of nature who's got, serious dynamite in both hands. And to survive that, I mean, listen, man, I think that he's going to come out here and I think he's going to destroy George Hardwick. I know people are saying this line's wide and whatnot. I don't even think he has to overcome early adversity because, like, with George Hardwick, it's always a thing where, like, he'll take the ass whooping up front and then in round 4 on Cage Warriors against these bums, he'll go out there and finish them. Firstly, there's no round 4 here. Secondly, Rahiki gets better as the fight progresses. I think it's all downhill for Hardwick here. I think Rahiki's going to make the kind of statement where we're like, okay, when this guy's 25, 26, 27, he's going to be a top 15 guy, and he's one of my prospects to watch. So that's all I got to say. I think Rahiki's going to shine big time in that UFC debut. Y'all got anything else to add before we move on? No? Okay.
No, you got it, brother. I was going to bring up the same thing, how this guy is already at his young age, has faced and shown that he can put up with adversity and come back from it in the same exact fight and win. It's a quality that we don't really see from these younger fighters. So that is just really good to see as a prospect, just showing that heart. So way to highlight it.
And because he's making his debut and he's not that popular yet, you know how fighters are when they do their interviews, like before they really get a name out there, they'll give like 45-minute to an hour and a half interviews and shit. Whereas when they get a little more popular, it gets cut down to 10 minutes. So now that he's doing those, 45 minutes to an hour and a half interviews, like, I'm learning a lot about this guy. And like, I already liked him before I ever heard him talk. But now that I've heard him talk, I'm like, okay, the mindset is truly there. And then some. To beat this guy, you're not going to outpoint this guy. You must finish this guy. You must catch this guy, get him out of there, because otherwise, I mean, unless he takes a big step up in competition, obviously we got to build him up the right way. But guess what, Liam Picks Fights and Wiz? Harry Hardwick is building him up the right way. So, yeah, I'm all about Rahiki in this spot. Now, moving on to the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Vitor Petrino, he's 13-2, taking on Steven Asplund, who's 7-1. Currently, they got a Vitor Petrino -215. The comeback on Asplund is +185. Petrino, only a year older at 28, 3 inches shorter at 6'2", and has a half-inch reach disadvantage at 77.5 inches of reach. So, Liam, I need you to go first on this one, my man. I mean, you got kind of like a heavyweight Diaz, bro, and Asplund in a way with like the output that he brings to the table. And, if you take him down, he'll probably be like, oh, this guy wasn't really fighting me, But Petrino, a freak of nature. And I'm so glad he's not killing himself to make 205 anymore. I mean, you see this guy on the scales. It's not like he's coming in here 230, 235. We're like, hey, bro, go back to 205. This guy's coming in 250, 255. We're like, whoa. He can finally breathe. He's finally got water and oxygen in his body and brain. And I feel like now he kind of got those first few fights at heavyweight under his belt. He knows what the weight class feels like. And he's got an opportunity to come out here and shine big time in this bout here against Asplund. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I think that this is a tale of two fights in a lot of ways, right? Like, I think that what these guys do well and what they do poorly kind of plays off of each other. And I think credit the matchmakers for that. I think it makes for a compelling fight. Vitor Petrino, to your point, this guy built like a brick shithouse, right? Even when I felt like his grappling was a little underdeveloped before the Turkali fight, I thought maybe Turkali could have some success in the grappling. I remember I bet Turkali by sub. And then I'm watching the fight, And Petrino is literally just horsing him around, just reversing positions through sheer athleticism. And I've talked about it many times, there's such a thing as an athletic cheat code. When you just have an ability to move, lift weight from awkward angles that other people can't do, that's an advantage for you, right? And I think that Vitor Petrino, that's what he brings to the grappling game. He's extremely physically strong. He can move guys around, horse them to the ground, pick them up, slam them down. And when he's on top of guys, he also knows some jiu-jitsu, right? He's getting better. He's a black belt now in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I believe he's been managed by Derek Brunson for some time, right? So the guy can wrestle. The guy can do jiu-jitsu. The problem is, I think at 205, cutting down the weight, I certainly think that affected his chin, right? But, it's stuck between a rock and a hard place where I didn't think his cardio was great at 205. And now when you come up to heavyweight, you can't really get taller. You can't get longer. What can you do? You could just add muscle. You could add weight, right? And when you do that, there's a little bit of, a trade-off, right? You look at Luke Rockhold. He looked like $1 million at 205. But he was slow as molasses. He was stiff as a board, and he, couldn't move fast, right? And I think that Vitor Petrino, he's a little bit slower and stiffer on the feet. He can land big shots, right? When he goes, he can throw and land big. He's fast and athletic with his shots. But just reacting defensively, that's where it's gotten him caught in the past, right? Against Anthony Smith, poor defensive reactions, poor decisions in the grappling. It was a really bad loss there. When you look at the Dustin Jacoby fight, Dustin Jacoby can knock out anybody, so I don't really fault him too much for that. But the way that it happens, it's like you're doing well in a fight. You could be having the fight of your life, and if one thing goes wrong, it can go wrong really fast for you. And I do think that it could be Vitor Petrino just steamrolling this guy. And if he does, my personal opinion is that it would be a submission. It would be him getting him to the ground, using his strength, his physicality, his knowledge of jiu-jitsu to get him out of there. But I think the longer this fight extends, the thing that we know about Asplund is he can throw a lot of punches. He's pretty fast with his hand speed, deceptively so. And he can throw straight punches down the middle. That's what Dustin Jacoby put Vitor Petrino down with. And when you look at Vitor Petrino got dropped by Rodolfo Bellato, had to get back up off the canvas and then put him down. He's done these things. He's a guy that has, athletic abilities. He's got gifts, right, that Asplund simply doesn't have. But Asplund's got heart, will, cardio. He pushes an insane pace. I do think that after one round of fighting, I'll be sitting there looking at the live line, potentially on a Stephen Asplund play, because he's a comeback kid. I think he's a guy that can come back and kind of, surprise Petrino. Petrino wants to bully guys and he wants to dominate them physically. And when he does that, looks like $1 million. But when he's unable to do that, he kind of falls apart. He's like a paper tiger in that way. Anthony Smith was beating his ass on the feet. That's the thing I think people forget. He kind of just had him staring. He was hitting him with low kicks. He was getting him out of sorts. He made bad decisions fast, and the fight was over before it even started. So maybe he's gotten past that, right? But who's he really been fighting and beating at heavyweight? Not world beaters, not guys that you're writing home about, not guys that are going to be, pushing up the rankings or anything like that. So I think that Asplund, again, for his faults, he has some things that he does really well, which is throw a lot of punches, stay in the fight mentally, keep trying to get back up. And if Petrino doesn't put him away, Asplund's going to be on his ass for 15.
Okay. We got one for Asplund. Wiz, what do you think?
Looking at this fight, I do like the move up to heavyweight for Petrino. He's starting to fill out his frame a little bit better. When you look at skill sets between both guys, I'm just not the biggest fan of Asplund's skill set overall. I love his volume striking because we haven't really seen anything like that in the heavyweight division. So that's something that's very attractive to the eye. But you look at the fight specifically against Denzel Freeman, who is now in the UFC, who Josh Hokett just beat up. And that's no shame to Freeman. Hokett's a legit prospect. But Freeman looked like he could take down Asplund at will in that fight, and he did. So that's the one worry if I was on the Asplund side here. I do like Liam's approach with taking it live rather than, pre-fight, waiting to see how round one goes. Because if Petrino decides to, play it smart and take this guy down from the first bell, I think it's an easy win for him, whether it's a decision, whether it's submission, whether it's ground and pound. I think more likely it would be a submission than anything. But you take a look at Petrino's fights, and he doesn't always do what's smart. So you have to have a little bit of pause when it comes to betting at especially this kind of line at minus 215, because on the feet, I think Asplund can box his face up. He will out volume Petrino, because Petrino really looks to swing heavies when it's on the feet, and you can't really.
Oh no, Wiz is doing the robot.
Am I still doing the robot?
Nah, you're a little better now. A little better now.
Okay, cool. But at this line, I'm going to have to still stick with Petrino as the pick. I do think that he goes out there and he takes down Steven Asplund at will and finds a submission, whether it's round 1 or round 2. But if he does not, then we have a problem on our hands.
Yeah, listen, I got to give Asplund a lot of credit because, you know, when I see a fat tub of lard in the UFC, you know, I'm trying to watch the best athletes fight the best athletes. So when I see a physique like that, I just don't take it too seriously. But you know what I do take seriously? You know, this guy's lost like 300 pounds. You know, he used to look 10 times worse. And that output and that volume for the way he looks, like, okay, you don't judge a book by its cover with this guy. I've learned the hard way. You know, I feel like every week there's one fighter on the card I don't take seriously. That burnt me a couple of weeks ago with Jordan Levitt, but it definitely didn't burn me with Macy Chauzan and Ricky Tercios. You know what I'm saying? Those are the fighters of the week I didn't take seriously. Asplund would have been, but he's starting to grow on me a little bit. But the thing about it is, man, I think Petrino such a better athlete. I think that Petrino, look, if it's a volume-based striking fight, then yeah, okay. But I think Petrino can catch him on the feet. I think Petrino can come out here and knock this guy out. But if he really wants to look minus 200 something, take this guy to the mat, pass his guard, land some ground and pound, make him give up his back, put those hooks in, and Mata Leon rear naked choke this guy, man. I mean, you got the chance to come out here, cover this price tag, extend your win streak at heavyweight, and announce yourself as a real prospect in the heavyweight division. I had high hopes for Vitor at 205. He won my rookie of the year on you know, was it 2023, 2024, something like that. He was my rookie of the year. Like, I haven't gone off the boat. I'm under the impression that, you know, first UFC L time mixed in with the extreme weight cuts just didn't do him any favors. And he still didn't do that bad against Jacoby, who you have to absolutely be on a certain level to not just beat a guy like Jacoby, but to even compete with a guy like Jacoby. So yeah, I like the fact that he's moved up and now he's had a couple fights at heavyweight. He's getting used to the weight class. I think this is the opportunity for him to come out here and truly shine. If he drops the ball here, we're done with him. But I think it's going to be kind of a wake-up call for Asplund. Actually, that you got to be well-rounded at this level. This is not Sean Sharaf anymore. This isn't these guys you've been fighting on the regional. I say these guys he's been fighting on the regional. Denzel Freeman gave this guy a tour of the octagon. Hey, real quick, Dixon Sider made a good point. He said that, Dan, are we finally getting the Octagon Tour of the Week? So he wants me to do a weekly segment because I like to talk about one of the terms on Half the Battle is, you know, giving people a tour of the Octagon. I think this is a matchup where someone could get a tour of the Octagon. I think that someone is Petrino giving Asplund a tour of the Octagon. I think he can pick this guy up and slam him. I think he can pass his guard. I think he can roughneck him, elbows from top, eventually pass that guard. And whether the guy covers up from ground and pound or he lets you choke him out, I think we're getting, I think it's going to be a submission here. I'm going Vitor Petrino to give Steven Asplund a tour of the Octagon. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Bruno Bulldog, he's 15-7-2, taking on Charles Johnson, who's 18-8. Currently, they got Charles Johnson minus 205 off concussion protocol. The comeback on Bruno Silva is plus 175. Both men 35. Charles has a 5-inch height advantage at 5'9" and a 4-inch reach advantage at 70 inches of reach. So I went on a pretty epic rant on my show earlier this week about this fight, and I kind of want to hear what y'all have to say. The fans have already heard what I have to say regarding this. I want to hear what y'all have to say. Which one of y'all has a stronger take on this fight? And before y'all go, okay, Liam, you go first, but answer this for me. Is Charles Johnson still on concussion protocol?
I mean, I would have to imagine that the answer is yes. For me, I really respect Charles Johnson. I've been a huge advocate of his in his UFC career. I bet him against Jake Hadley as a dog. It's nothing but respect. But, I think timing is everything. I mentioned that before, right? The timing is that he just got knocked out very recently, right? For the first time in his career. That's not a bullish signal for me, right? A guy who's been historically tough, historically durable. And for me, what does wisdom say? Wisdom says, hey, you get clipped, you get knocked out. Maybe you take 6 months off. You give yourself some time to recover, rest, get back in there when you're fully prepared, when you're ready, when you've gotten over the demons. Instead, it feels more like an ego play to me. And I say this again as a fan, but you got to keep it 100, even if you're a fan of somebody. When you get back in there 5 weeks after you get knocked out, that feels like an ego play. Like, let me get myself right back in there and get myself in a title shot and all these things. Both these guys are a similar age. You look at guys that have beaten, Johnson in the past. Cody Durden, great fighter, but a guy that has certainly fallen on some hard times in the UFC lately. He got a win over Charles, and he did it by mixing in the takedowns, going after his wrestling, landed some shots on the feet as well. You look at Ode Osborne, obviously some weird fouls and stuff going on in that fight, but Ode Osborne was able to go out there and keep it competitive enough, keep it close enough. And Johnson's been a guy that's about a 500 fighter when fights hit the scorecards, right? Bruno Silva, he's been a finisher. He's been going out there and finishing guys, 5 finish wins in the UFC, right? That's impressive, especially in these lighter weight classes. You don't see that every day. And, you see that he's got submissions on the record. The guy can go out there and hurt you. He can follow you to the ground, finish you there. And for Charles, it's like, yeah, do I really respect his submission defense when he's cognizant, when he knows what's going on, when he's fully present, making good decisions? Absolutely. The guy's shown great submission defense, a willingness to stay in the fight. He's got great heart, grit. But when you're not thinking clearly, you make bad decisions. You get caught in ways that you wouldn't get caught otherwise. I think if he gets hit with a hard punch in this fight, scrambles his brain a little bit, and it puts him in a bad spot, there's no easy bailout takedown. I shoot underneath and I'm safe. I can take some time, extend it on a shot, recover, get my wits back about me. It's not really like that with Bruno. If you make those mistakes, he'll put you away. And Tyson Nam, post-UFC, has had incredible success, has been knocking guys out still, putting guys on highlight reels. What does Bruno Silva do to him? He not only hurts him badly, he quickly follows him to the ground and chokes him fully unconscious. I've always said there's no tough guy in a choke. You just go to sleep like everybody else. And I feel like Charles Johnson in this fight is at risk of going to sleep again in this fight. Like last fight, he stayed with it a little bit, but he was clearly out on his feet. And I'm just worried that you come back so soon. What do we know about Bruno Silva? The guy hits like a truck. The guy is a proven finisher. And the guy, if you are hurt, if you are in a bad spot, he will get you out of there by hook or by crook. He will take the neck happily, right? He does not discriminate. So I don't know if he's going to claim one for jiu-jitsu or land a big punch on the chin, but I feel like Bruno Silva, live underdog this week, and not one that I'm waiting to take live. I'm going to take it pre because we know Charles Johnson, not unfamiliar with dropping that first round, kind of, taking a little bit to get off the stool and get going and wake up. So all respect to his resume, all respect to the big wins. Thank you for the Jake Hadley ticket. I think that was in his home in St. Louis. But now I think, he's making a little bit of an ego play, getting right back in there. And if it pays off, I'll tip my cap to, a good fighter. But I think Bruno Silva is a good fighter too. And I don't think he's a punk. He was preparing for a Lonnie Kavanaugh fight. That fight gets pulled away from him. Now Johnson says, I'm ready to go again 5 weeks later. Let's see.
Yeah. So 2 things to say. Number one, about, him dropping the first round in like every fight, but it's not just dropping the first round. Like, Azat Maxim wasn't just winning that first round. He almost knocked him out in the first round. Lonnie Kavanaugh almost knocked him out in the first round. Now Alex Perez, the ghost of Alex Perez, who's like 1-6 in his last 7, is knocking him out. So what that tells me is no longer can you just be a walking punching bag. Oh, now you're gassed out from whooping my ass. Now I'm going to pace you late round 2 and round 3. Like, I feel like we're kind of behind those days. My second point, my friend Cody Durden fought Charles back when Cody was in his prime. And you know what the scorecards were, right? 30-27 times 3. So there wasn't even some kind of comeback in the third round. No, Cody just gave him a tour of the octagon for 3 straight rounds. Cody told me after that fight, he went up to Charles backstage and he was like, hey, man, like, you're a great fighter, but like, why don't you take a little time off to iron out some details in your game so that you could come back a better version of yourself? You know what Charles told him? He's like, fuck that. I'm going to come back in 2 weeks. Like the guy, his arrogance is unlike anything I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport. But it's not just arrogance, it's immaturity too. Because I made a tweet recently. I didn't tag Charles. You know, I'm not tagging fighters, let alone ones on concussion protocol. Like, you think I'm going to go back and forth with a guy who's coming off a concussion? Come on, I'm better than that. But what I wrote was, maturing is understanding that Josh Van and Lone Kavanaugh would easily beat Charles Johnson in rematches. I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that. You know, I predict fights, therefore I'm going to give my prediction on a fight. And guess who was writing paragraphs under that tweet? Charles Johnson, a week before his fight. Let me ask y'all something. Y'all think a badass like Alex Poatan Pereira would be going back and forth with the fans in the comment section, or even give a flying fuck, even look at what's on Twitter? He probably has someone running his Twitter for him. Like, you tell him something someone says, Jama, you know, just move on. But like Charles Johnson, like a week before the fight, like you're writing paragraphs going back and forth. Like, dude, is this guy still concussed? And now you're taking on one of the heaviest hitters. If there's one thing you can say about Bruno Bulldog, he hits like an absolute truck. And Charles just got knocked out like a month and a week ago. And he always loses round one. He's been getting rocked in round one every single fight. Whiz bets. Liam picks fights. I think that Bruno Bulldog is going to come out here and knock Charles Johnson, the you-know-what, out in the very first round. Wiz, come on, give it to me. Tell me what's up. Tell me what's up.
I'm, looking at this fight the same exact way. I just never am in favor of a fighter coming back this quickly off of a knockout loss, going up against a really heavy hitter in Bruno Bulldog Silva. It's just not something that you want to see a fighter go through. And when you see the stuff in terms of the mental game, as you're mentioning, him replying to a tweet, that's just something that shows that you're not completely locked in. Sure, maybe you have enough time on your hands to look through Twitter and your feed, but if you're digging and you're taking the time to reply, and it shows that it's affecting you mentally. And I believe it. Charles Johnson is just an uber confident guy. He's confident in his skills, and he does have a good skill set. But the issue is that it's the age. When you get up there in age, you start to, the chin starts to wear out. And who knows, maybe him taking that first round off could be to calculate and to download information, as they say out there. Or it could be that he has to ease himself into the fight, otherwise he gets sparked. Because that's been a common theme against Kavanaugh, against Azat Maksum, early hurt. He gets hurt early. So it's just not something that is promising when it comes to looking at Charles Johnson's outlook as a fighter as a whole. And then also when you look at him being knocked out not too long ago, that just spells danger. And against Bruno Bulldog, I think he's going to be able to hurt him on the feet at some point in this fight. And he can hold his own if he gets taken down, and he can scramble his way back up. So Bruno Bulldog is not no easy fighter to go up against, whether it's after being knocked out by 2 months or coming off of a win. So at plus 175, it's hard to deny.
Okay, moving on, gentlemen. This is a tough one, because next up in the middleweight division, we got two vets. We got Brad Tavares, he's 21-11, taking on Eryk Anders, who's 17-9. Currently, they got it. Brad minus 130. The comeback on your boy is plus 110. Both men 38. Both men 6'1". Eryk with a 1-inch reach advantage at 75 inches of reach. This is Eryk Anders' retirement fight. And does Brad Tavares by chance hold the record for the most unanimous decision wins in middleweight history? I believe he does. Last time he finished someone was Christoph Jocko, and last time prior to that was Phil Baroni at UFC 125, the night that Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard had that draw, the night that Thiago Silva was playing the drums on Brandon Vera's back, if you remember. That's how long ago the second last time that Tavares finished someone was. But I digress. He's great at winning decisions, big leg kicks, nice combinations. But where it's really at with Brad Tavares is that takedown defense. That takedown defense is the most elite part of his game. But Eryk Anders, a brute athlete, kind of on the slower side, but he's physical and he hits super hard. Definitely the harder hitter of the two. And he's been putting in a lot of work on his jiu-jitsu. So kind of an interesting fight here. I think that Anders has a chance to catch Tavares, but if that doesn't happen, I do not foresee him taking down Tavares with that ridiculous takedown defense where Tavares is balancing on one leg. You know what I'm saying? So I think if it goes 3, it's going to be a Tavares decision. It's just, do any of y'all, what kind of chance do y'all give Anders to knock him out? Liam picks fights.
Well, that's a difficult question to parse out. You know, I think that Brad, like when I first heard about this fight, I was hoping that Anders was going to be a much bigger underdog just based on like the perception of the two guys. Unfortunately, the line is a lot closer than I even expected. And it's just because when you talk about retirement fights, normally that's like, you know, everybody's off that. Like, I'm not going to click that no matter what. But I do think people kind of recognize Brad is nearing the end of his run as well. You know, guys that shouldn't have gotten him out of there, like a Bruno Silva, although he's extremely dangerous, that's his win condition, so to speak. You know, the way that it looks in that run of fights where Bruno Silva is just like, you know, just folding the 10 and not really interested in being out there. To have that kind of juxtaposition.
Poatan took his soul.
Yeah, man, but that juxtaposition, it's tough, right? And I look back at Anders and, you know, he was plus 600 to knock out Kyle Dawkins. I wrote it up in one of the articles that I was doing, and he went out there and put hands on him, right? And Anders is a guy that does have real power, and I feel like both these guys have slowed down a little bit, right? I do think the minute winner, so to speak, is Brad. I think he's the better fighter in terms of skills, and you mentioned it. I would call it elite anti-grappling. Just over the course of his career, anti-wrestling, anti-grappling, whatever you want to say, he would disengage. He would be hard to hold on to. He's pushing away. He's whizzing. And then when you're holding on desperately, he's punching you in the face. You know, he's making you pay for holding on. I thought the UFC gave Chris Weidman the most dirty return fight when he was coming back from that leg injury because, you know, Brad's like the hardest guy to take down at 185 pretty consistently. So when I look at a matchup like this, I don't think Anders is getting takedowns here. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is going to be a factor unless he hurts him. So whatever the price is on Anders' knockout, that's the way I would look to play it if you're going to play it. You know, Anders is still a guy that comes out and swings heavies, plays for keeps, so to speak, right? That's the way he's going to win fights as far as I'm concerned at this stage of his career. Otherwise, his style just doesn't really translate. Even when he was a little bit more close to his athletic prime and he was able to get the you know, win, I think it was over, what was that, Jin Young Park, by, you know, kind of forcing the wrestling and the ugly exchanges. I'm potentially
both guys lost to Iron Turtle.
Okay, that's what it was. But Anders came like this close. I was the one that bet Park in that instance, and Anders is taking him down and doing all these things. I just feel like Park is a guy who's a little bit less physical, and that's happened to him a few times. Tavares, he's a big, strong guy for the middleweight division. And, you know, aside from, I think, RoboCop, I haven't really seen a guy just easily get him to the ground, you know, even at this stage. So RoboCop's a freak. I don't think Anders is going to do it. I think Anders needs to knock him out to win.
Okay, Wiz, what you think?
I don't have really the strongest take on this fight because I really am not interested in either of these guys at this stage of their career. But, yeah, Tavares, you're not going to take this guy down. On the feet, I think he can outpoint Anders, but getting dropped and getting hurt by Chris Weidman is just a huge red flag to me at this stage.
What about Jamie Pickett?
Yeah, that one too. Let's add that to the list. So, you know, I think the Anders KO or pass, just like Liam mentioned, because it's probably at a big price at the moment. And if you're looking at Brad Tavares by decision, I don't have the odds pulled up in front of me, but I can't imagine it's anything too prestigious, let's call it. But yeah, for me, I'm picking Anders.
Decision is around 2-1. It looks like a little bit under that, yeah. Plus 190s, plus 185s.
Sounds about right. If I were to assume.
Hey,
if you go unanimous, you can do better, I bet.
Sorry, what'd you say, Liam?
If you go unanimous, let me see what the difference is there. Oh my God, unanimous decision is almost the exact same as decision. That's disgusting. Plus 215, best available.
I mean, listen, he literally only wins that way. Now, of course, he's going to get a knockout finally. The thing with Eryk Anders that I got a lot of respect for is he's a true fighter. If you watch that Khalil Roundtree fight, which I was in attendance for in Atlanta, Georgia, UFC 236, he got dropped like a million times and kept getting back up and was like, is that all you got? Whereas like now, and like, it's okay to get dropped by Khalil. You know how heavy of a hitter Khalil is, but like now you're getting dropped by Jamie Pickett, now you're actually getting knocked out for the first time. There's no shame in getting knocked out by CLD. That guy's a stud, but it's just more so to bring up kind of like with Charles Johnson, how he used to be able to get rocked and shit kicked in that first round, then overcome it, come back, and then Alex Perez put him away. I feel like similar things are happening to Eryk, where like he used to just be able to take a baseball bat to the face. Now he's finally starting to get dropped in fights. But luckily for him, Tavares not the heaviest hitter, but heavy kicker, great takedown defense, good pace, knows how to win decisions. So I think Anders is KO or bust, and I think Tavares most likely wins a unanimous decision. So, let's see what happens, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, I want to apologize. I just got home and I'm about to break my fast, so I'm going to be cutting it short here, but it was a pleasure breaking down some fights with you. Dan, thanks for having me on. Liam, always a pleasure, my brother. I can break down this next one before I go, though.
Hey, what you eating, though? I'm hungry, man. Talk to me. You got some chicken bar, some catch bat in June?
My brother is making some rice, some chickens. It's like this Arabic dish: rice, chicken, some pistachios. There's cashews in it. It's hard to like describe it. It's basically a glorified rice and chicken.
Yeah, dude. So my favorite Persian spot just reopened. Like they did a bunch of renovations. It was so popular that they had to expand it, and it's called Rumi's Kitchen, bro.
I remember you talking to me about that. Yeah.
Next time either of y'all are in Atlanta, Rumi's Kitchen on me. I got y'all. But all right, we'll break this next one down. I'll let you go first on it, and then I'll get you out of here. So next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Chris Curtis. He's 32-12. Taking on Myktybek Orolbai, who's 15-2-1. Currently, they got it. Myktybek minus 260. The comeback on Chris is plus 220. So Myktybek 10 years younger at 28. Both men 5'10". Chris has a 1.5-inch reach advantage at 75.5 inches of reach. So, Wiz, tell me what you think.
Yeah, you look at this fight, you see Chris Curtis coming down from middleweight, Orolbai coming up from lightweight. Whenever I see something like this, especially when the person moving down a weight class is much older, we're talking double-digit age gap here. It spells
Jack Hermanson.
Yeah, it spells trouble for the person moving down a weight class from middleweight to welter. So Chris Curtis, you look at his game, solid pocket boxer, very accurate, defensively sound. His takedown defense has looked shades better than what he's shown in the PFL. I just fear that this is just a spot for Orolbai to prove once again that A, welterweight is the weight class for him, and B, to prove the statistic that whenever it's a 10+ year age gap in terms of a fight, it favors the younger guy almost every single time. I think Orolbai is going to be able to out physical Chris Curtis here. He might not be the most technical boxer or kickboxer out there. He does have power. He's fast with his hands, and I think it's probably going to take a few of them to land on Curtis to potentially damage him, and from there you can take him down, and whether it's ground and pound or submission, I think he gets him out of there within 2 rounds. Curtis has always been known to be a durable guy, but he's been in so many wars. Look at the Brendan Allen, where at the end he literally had to just hobble down on one foot after I think he tore his, I can't remember if it's LCL or PCL, but one of the CLs, and I think this is just going to be a Orolbai finish here through and through.
Awesome. Wiz, you're the man. They can follow you at Wiz MMA. Friday, I think you and Liam are doing your thing, but either way, man, the fans got to follow you, and I hope you have an incredible break to your fast right now.
My brothers, thank you so much. Chat, make sure you fucking like this stream now. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace, bro. Love that guy, man. You know, I've hung out with him a couple times in person, in both in Atlanta and in California.
That's awesome, man. No, I did not know that, but that's great.
Yeah, he's the man. But yeah, tell me what you think about this fight.
Sure thing, man. I kind of thought the last matchup for Orolbai was interesting because I was like, man, if he's going to try and go out there and grapple with Jack Hermanson, this could get interesting. And then he goes out there and just absolutely nukes him on the feet. I do think Orolbai, he has, serious power. That's something to be reckoned with. He's willing to exchange on the feet. He's tough as an old leather boot. Very, very durable fighter. Mateusz Rebecki basically put an elbow through his head, and he just was standing there, none the wiser, still fighting hard till the bitter end while he's losing blood by the minute. So clearly Orolbai, heart is not an issue. Willingness to push through adversity, that's clearly there. Much younger guy in the matchup. I think he's going to be a little bit faster than Curtis. But the thing that is a little bit interesting, at least, is like, what does Rebecki do that makes it an interesting fight? Or why did he have the ability to push back against Orolbai? He defended a bunch of takedowns. He was able to work back up to his feet when he did get taken down, never settling for the bottom position. And when he was on the feet, he made it count, landing big shots, doing damage. And Orolbai was wearing it, right? He's a guy that's willing to stand in there to wrestle and to strike. And when you do that, you can take damage sometimes. If I thought Chris Curtis, was going to really reliably sit down on his shots here, take big chances against Orolbai, I think that would give him a better chance to win. But I think if he tries to be, crafty and a little bit fighting on the back foot, I think Orolbai is going to be the guy who lands the shots that look a little bit more convincing, the guy who's able to press forward. And, unlike a guy like Rodolfo Vieira, who wants it to be a perfect takedown or nothing, I think Orolbai is willing to chain wrestle you, push you into the fence, knee you a little bit, make you work. And I don't think Curtis likes that kind of fight. It's a small cage at the apex. So ultimately, I think a lot of things favor Orolbai, but he's burnt people before at this price tag, not in this division, right? But Rebecki, I just feel like does offer some archetypal similarities. So that's the only reason why, I wouldn't be sprinting to the window, but I think Orolbai wins.
I did sprint to the window. Let me tell you why. Look, I love your points about the Rebecki fight, but to me, two takeaways. Number one, the heart. Oh my God. But number two, hey, let's not kill ourselves to make 155 anymore, man. I mean, like, you know that, like, he had multiple fights where he had to request 165-pound catch weight, like against Tofik, and missed weight a bunch at 155. Like, bro, cut it out. 170 is your weight class. Plus, you already showed, you remember he choked out Uroš Medic before he dropped to 55s. It's like, dude, now
I bet that and the sub.
Beautiful job. Now, I just like the fact that, like, hey, you're starting to enter your prime now. You found the correct weight class. You got some great wins in this weight class. You finished Medic. You finished Hermanson. Now you're going up against the guy. I know MMA math doesn't mean shit, but like, we've seen Hermanson and Curtis, and we saw Hermanson run circles around him. And that's been a recurring theme for Curtis. He'll not do enough and then he'll cry. It's like in the Kopolov fight, people act like that was an early stoppage. He gets kicked in the head. I mean, he was getting outpointed the whole fight, man. I just don't like, he's one of these guys that cries like Charles Johnson. I just can't with these guys, and now he's deleted his whole social media, which is none of my business. But like, you think a guy like Alex Pereira, a real badass, would do that? Like there's just difference in mentality between, I just feel like there's something mentally off with Curtis. And more importantly than any of that, that's narrative. That's speculative. He's almost 40 years old. He's had a long ass career. He's retired before. He's going up against the guy who pushes a hellacious pace and is entering his prime, has paid dues, has had his first octagon setback already. I was comfortable taking the 230 on Orolbai earlier this week because I'm capitalizing on these age gaps. I simply am. Javier Reyes against Douglas Silva de Andrade, Raul Rosas versus Javi Fanch. Only reason I can't play Vallejos straight is because he's like minus 600. But all those other ones I mentioned were reasonably priced. This one was also reasonably priced a couple days ago. So you give me these 10-year age gaps, and I'm capitalizing. And I think Orolbai, whether it's a finish, whether it's a decision, low-key, I hope he wins a split decision so that Chris Curtis cries afterwards. But no, in all seriousness, I think Orolbai is just going to outwork this guy, simply put. Whether it's a finish or a decision, that remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be Orolbai getting that arm raised in dominant fashion, my friend. Now, this is going to be a banger. Next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Bolaji, he's 10-3, welcoming Manoel Sosa, who's 13-1 to the UFC. Currently, they got it Manoel minus 300. The comeback on Bolaji's plus 250. Bolaji, 2 years older at 30, an inch taller at 5'10, has a 3-inch reach advantage to 73 inches of reach. You know how we were talking about with Hardwick, how, in Cage Warriors, he'll take that ass whooping up front and then, get one of these bums out of there in the 4th round. Well, you can't really do it at the UFC level if you lack athleticism and you're kind of a pipsqueak. Well, this guy Sousa is the complete opposite of a pipsqueak. This guy, did you see what he overcame on Contender Series? And that guy he was in there with, I'm telling you all right now, do not sleep on that kid. I think his last name was it Perez? That kid is going to come back and be a serious problem. And the fact that Sosa overcame that, and I've seen him do similar things on his regional scene, like we said with Hardwick being this pipsqueak. Look at this. This is what you call the opposite of a pipsqueak. This is what you call a freak athlete who has the requisite experience outside the UFC, has seriously paid dues, has tasted defeat before, has beat real guys. Hey, that's Mauricio Hoofy, guys. Y'all know what Mauricio Hoofy's been doing lately? Mauricio Hoofy just knocked out Rafael Fiziev, my friends. And Manuel Sousa didn't just, lay on him and hump his legs and make the crowd, but he knocked Mauricio Hoofy, the you-know-what, out. This guy can knock people out. He's got high-amplitude takedowns. He can overcome adversity. I like everything about this guy. With Bolaji in the early going, I mean, with those physical attributes, the guy's a freak athlete. The guy's going to go out there in that first round. He's hell on wheels, and if you're not quite on the level of Bolaji, I mean, he'll style on you. But when you're as tough and as experienced as Sosa is, I think he can take whatever Bolaji brings in that first round. I mean, assuming he doesn't just get caught clean on the button and goes out, but I think he's going to take whatever Oki brings up front. Second and third round, he's going to put it on Oki badly. Oki's going to run out of ideas. And I mentioned how Oki runs through a lower level of competition. Is that even true? I mean, he had like a split decision fight with Timmy Kawamba, who I like, but Timmy's a bantamweight, Liam. A bantamweight. This is lightweight we're talking about, my friend. And let me tell you something. For Manuel Sosa to make bantamweight or even featherweight, he's got to cut his leg off. This guy's going to finish his career at 170. You understand what I'm saying? He's got that, remember Michelle Tractor Prazeres? He's got that body type, I just think that first round's going to be kind of close. After that, Manuel Sosa is going to take over this fight and possibly finish too.
Yeah, man. I thought that Manuel Sosa was one of the best prospects on Contender Series. Just straight up, when you watch the guy fight, the composure is next level. The one loss on his record, Archie Colgan. I could just tell you guys, Archie Colgan, as legit as it gets in terms of American wrestling, right? D1 All-American, very high-level guy from the University of Wyoming. And Archie Colgan is extremely physically strong. He's a good athlete. He's got good MMA abilities. He really can wrestle. That's a really tough fight, right? Did Sousa ever look gassed in that fight? Did he ever look like he quit on himself? No, against a really tough task, he kept trying to fight the whole time. He kept trying to win the fight till the bitter end. So when a guy loses a fight like that, that's a wrestling deficit, right? If a guy's a really good wrestler, a high-level guy, an All-American type caliber candidate, sure, then I think they might be able to test Manuel Sosa. But other than that, this guy's going to be hell on wheels for just about everybody. The guy's a builder. As he works into fights, he's extremely hard to kill, but he can kill you, and he forces guys to capitulate. I predicted that BSD was going to make Rufy capitulate, and the reason being the blueprint had been laid, right? Sosa had already done it, and it was endure, right? Be willing to take what's coming at you, be tough as shit, be a marauder, and when you get your opportunity, bite down, come forward, and don't let them off the hook. Guys certain people have finishing instincts and certain people don't. And I think this guy's got finishing instincts. You know, that kid, like you mentioned on Contender Series, he was tough as shit. He was fighting well. But if Sousa feels like he's got an opportunity, you're not seeing the door. And that's it. So I just feel like Sousa's the kind of guy that Bolaji, he's been finished twice in his UFC losses, right? I think he's getting his third UFC loss. I think it's going to be a finish. Dangerous guy, powerful puncher. But Michael Aswell, you know, I felt like he came in on short notice, made a great account of himself because he made it the full 15. He took the big shots from Oki. He landed plenty of significant strikes there. Oki's there to be hit. Oki's willing to get into these back and forth battles. Aswell on short notice up a weight class gave him a lot that he could handle, right? And Oki had to take over on cardio when the guy couldn't train long enough to be prepared for 15 minutes. So I just feel like this is a whole different ball game. Sousa, I've never seen tired in a 15-minute fight. I think he's going to kind of run through him, honestly. I think he's just going to be a higher level athlete. So give me Sousa to get the win and to get the finish.
Do you know who Bolaji Oki reminds me of, Liam?
Who's that?
Do you remember a fighter named Melvin the Young Assassin Gillard?
Of course I do. One of the all-time knockout leaders at lightweight, no?
Yeah, knockout leader, so explosive, but flaky. You know, doesn't overcome adversity. If you can take his ass whooping, chances are you might tap him out, you might knock him out. But like when he gets you, he gets you. That's one thing. So maybe Oki doesn't have as many knockouts as Gillard, obviously, but like he kind of has a similar style and prototype in the sense that like it's front run based. You understand? So, but he's super dangerous. You don't just go out there and fight with your hands down against a guy like Oki. Let me tell you that, especially in the first round. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Luan Lacerda. He's 13-3, welcoming Hecher Sosa to the UFC, who's 14-1. Currently, they got an Hecher -210. The comeback on Luan Lacerda is +180. Luan, 3 years older at 33, an inch shorter at 5'7", but he has a 1.5 inch reach advantage, 71.5 inches of reach. So, Liam, I'm happy for Luan Lacerda because tough 2 fights to get started with that UFC career. Cody Stamann in the debut and Damon Blackshear in the sophomore appearance. And he took some time off, and then he was on a loser leaves town matchup. He was on the chopping block, and they gave him Simon Oliveira. Loser's gone. And he didn't just like squeak by him. He treated him how someone that belongs in the UFC treats Simon Oliveira. And I also like the fact that now he's got that momentum behind him. He's coming back relatively soon. So now, like, hey, you're being active again. I love it. But with Hecher Sosa, I got to admit, I counted him out on his Contender Series fight. And the Spanish fans definitely didn't let me hear the end of that. So I respect the fact that he's got such a loyal fan base. And I also respect the performance he put on because he went out there against a kid in Maxim Lee who I was high on. That guy's a 6'1" bantamweight who is a matchup problem for a lot of people. And Hecher Sosa didn't get the memo. And he's another guy, Hecher, that's paid dues. He's had his setbacks outside the UFC, come back better. I like this guy. I think he's ready to make that debut. The question is, Liam picks fights. I mean, he's going up against a guy who's had 3 UFC appearances, who now knows what that walk is like, knows what those bright lights are like, knows what decent level of competition is like. How do you see them matching up?
Well, I could just level with you, right? I always celebrate the wins, own the losses. I feel like I haven't gotten a, Luan Lacerda fight right. Like, I felt like this guy looked like he could be something coming off the regionals. Like, I felt like he had a little bit of a decent game to him. Could be
no way you picked Simon. You didn't pick Simon.
Honestly, I can't remember on that one, but I just feel like I picked Luan Lacerda to beat the guys that he lost to. I think I picked him to submit Cody Stamann, and then he did not do that, right? And then I picked him to knock out Damon Blackshear, and we know how that one turned out, right? So I just haven't had a good beat on the guy. I think he's dealt with some injuries as well. I feel like he's almost looked worse in the UFC than he did before that. Hecher Sosa on the other side, he's a younger guy by 3 years, making the debut here. He's got a bunch of professional fights, so I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for him. Also, it's at the Apex, pretty comfortable confines in terms of if you're looking to make a UFC debut, where's it the most comfortable? Where's it the most accessible? I feel like an Apex show kind of fits the bill for that. And, I just don't know that I feel like Lacerda will compete athletically. I feel like the difference between him and Damon Blackshear was clearly a UFC level athlete, and he just didn't look like one. To your point about Simon Oliveira, the guy just seems like the ultimate flake, right? He hasn't really had any success in the UFC, mostly getting cleaned up quickly. So Hecher Sosa just feels like a guy you're going to have to kill him to beat him. Maybe Lacerda can, roll for something on the ground, be opportunistic. I don't think Sosa's a punk in the grappling. I think that's one of his better attributes. So I feel like Sosa's going to be comfortable, mixing this fight up in different phases, pushing the pace, being aggressive. I think he's probably got the better cardio and process. So I understand why he's favored. I understand why people don't want to lay the chalk on a debutante. For me, I don't feel like I'll be betting on this fight, but I'll pick Sosa to get the win.
Yeah. No, and I mean, speaking of submission defense or just Sosa's ground game, because that could be a factor here. Maxon Lee, who I said is a 6'1" bantamweight, he had a long man choke on him. And again, I wouldn't have held it against Sosa if he went to sleep, if he tapped. And the fact that he got out of that and went on to dominate, I'm like, I take note of these kind of things. But when you're talking about this kid, Hecher Sosa, I like the fact that he fights with a lot of pride, a lot of spirit. He's well-rounded. He's mostly known for his hands, but he can mix it up with takedowns. He can land calf kicks, and also he's not undefeated. He doesn't have that false sense of confidence and arrogance that comes with the undefeated fighter, because in one of these fights he got caught, and my big criticism of Mr. Sosa was that he doesn't move his head off the center line, and that will be exposed, but I feel like he's gotten better about that. And also when he smells blood or he feels like he's got you hurt, he's not going to hesitate to close the show. So there truly is a lot to like about him. And then in terms of the mental side of things, that he lost his dad a week before the Contender Series fight or something like that, or maybe the day before. The day before,
and that made me I'm not betting this guy. I was put off.
The day before. And for you to not just go in there and show up, but you show up not just to the octagon, but you show up in the fight against a real prospect. Dude, those are the kind of things that let me know what's up here. For those listening on Spotify and stuff, I'm pointing to my brain, you know what I'm saying? And to my heart, that just lets me know. Actually, my heart's on this side, the left side. Do you know why the ring finger is on the left? On the left? No,
can't say that I do. I love trivia though.
Because the vein right here is connected to your heart on the left side. So that's why the ring finger is on the left. But yeah, this guy showed the heart of an absolute lion. He truly wanted to be in there. And I think he's got a more well-rounded approach than Lacerda. Obviously, there's things to be concerned about, debut, this and that. But I'm more concerned about debuts when it's some 6-0 guy who's unproven, Luke Fernandez or Tobias, guys that less than 10 pro fights, haven't fought anybody. Whereas Sosa's fought some people. He's taken that setback. He's not 22 years old. You know what I mean? I think he's ready. Simply put. Lacerda's got to be motivated. Last fight on his contract. This could be it for him. So I'm sure he's going to show up, but I'm going to pick Sosa to just be a little bit cleaner than him in the stand-up department and keep it up on the feet. Now, get into the home stretch, my friend, because next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Bia Mesquita. She's 6-0, taking on Montserrat Rendon, who is 7-1. Currently, they got a Bia Mesquita minus 550. The comeback on Montserrat Rendon is plus 420. Montserrat, 2 years older at 36, 4 inches taller at 5'8", has a half inch of reach at 68 inches of reach. So Liam picks fights. Listen, I grapple, as you know, but I don't actually keep up with the grappling scene much. I keep it with the UFC scene, but the grappling scene, you can, obviously I know who Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones are and shit, but there's about the Ruotolo brothers. I know a few people, don't get me wrong, but I don't follow it religiously like I follow the UFC. Now I grapple religiously. Now the reason I brought that up is because I didn't know about Bia Mesquita, that she beat Mackenzie Dern in pure jujitsu. Like, this girl's got some serious credentials. She goes out there in that debut. I was very impressed with what she did. And with Rendon on the other side, I mean, she kind of just exists. You know, she goes to split decisions with Tamiris Vidal. That last fight against that Elise Pereira girl, that wasn't even about what Rendon did right. That was about what Pereira did wrong. I mean, the girl was 19 years old, making her UFC debut, clearly starstruck and couldn't handle the moment, was running away the entire fight. That was one of those fights where one person lands one strike, the other person lands 0 strikes. So as a default, by default, the person that lands 1 strike wins the fight. That was one of those situations. But here against Mesquita, I mean, if the minus 550 price is any indication, unless Mesquita got into like a fight with her boyfriend the morning before the fight, or is that time of the month, even then, one takedown and the fight will be over shortly after Liam picks fights.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'll keep my breakdown pretty short and sweet on this one. I once described Montserrat Rendon as looking like she's throwing punches underwater, and I stand by that. You know, when you just look like it's not fast, there's not a lot of athleticism there. Is there some heart? Is there some willingness to fight? Sure. But, you know, respect, she steps in the cage. Like, God bless. But you just got to call a spade a spade. And, you know, I feel like she does not look like an athlete on this level. Split decision wins are the kind of things that, you know, you can flake by against the lowest level people when they have to raise somebody's hand. Being Mesquita on the other side, much more dangerous fighter. Do I think there will be a time to fade her down the road? Truthfully, I do. Rewatching that Hope Chase fight, not really huge fan of how she reacts to getting hit. You know, obviously it was an illegal strike, but she had gotten upkicked cleanly once before that, and just was disengaging a couple times when trying to pass. And Hope Chase is a 4-2 regional fighter at the time. So all of that's to say, I think Bia Mesquita, the time to fade will be sometime in the future. I think she's going to win been to decision in all of her fights. Mesquita, a career finisher, something's got to give. I think the minus 700 is going to have it her way, and I think she's going to finish the fight. The one thing I'll note, though, is, you know, the submission is obviously most likely, but I just wouldn't rule out a TKO in this fight either. When you look at girls, I always look for girls that are aggressive with ground and pound if I'm going to play a TKO prop on a woman, and I do think that she fits the bill in that regard. And against a lot of opponents, they're going to offer you more resistance in terms of getting the fight to the mat and these other things. And I just feel like the prices could radically shift in her next fight, for example, if she's able to go out there and do that here tonight. So this weekend. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Elijah Smith. He's 9-1, taking on Su Young Yu, who's 16-3. Currently, they got it. Elijah Smith. The line actually moved. He's minus 200 now. The comeback on Su Young is plus 170. Shout out to all my friends that are fans of the show. That are fans of the movie Rush Hour, because, you know, Su Young was the young lady that got rescued by Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. But Su Young ain't getting rescued Saturday night at the Apex. I like Elijah Smith. I played him straight to win a unit. I think that this guy's a serious prospect, and I love how, for such a young guy, he's got heart, he's got maturity. We'll talk about the athleticism and all that stuff in a second, but, you know, you can be athletic as hell and be a front runner, right? Like Bolaji, for example. But this guy, Elijah Smith, some of the stuff he overcame in that Vince Morales fight, and it might be easy to be like, yeah, but Vince Morales doesn't win UFC fights. Right. But we're talking about like a 22-year-old kid in Smith, and Morales has like twice or thrice the experience. You understand? And to overcome some of those spots deep into the fight, like, I take note of that. And then we got to bring up the difference in athleticism between Smith and Yu, the difference in the hand speed, the reach, the wrestling. I think Su Young is in deep shit, Liam.
See, this is a fight, again, where, you know, I want to fade Su Young Yu, but he's the underdog in this fight, right? So I'd have to lay the chalk. I need to have a little bit more conviction. And I have just had my pauses with Elijah Smith, right? I think he's a very good fighter in terms of long-term trajectory. Like, son of a UFC fighter, 23 years of age, already got wins in his belt under the promotional banner. Like, the guy's doing everything right. But Toshiomi Kazama, I felt like that was kind of a gimme, right? Like a little bit of a layup, just such a huge physicality difference. Maybe, the same thing could apply here. I just don't see it that way, right? Kazama's more of a guard pole jiu-jitsu guy, with all due respect. And you is more of a, I'm going to try and wrestle for top position guy. The thing about you that I really don't like is that he slows down over the course of 15 minutes. You see a different guy in round 1 than in round 3, and you see different wrestling success, right? Like, the guy goes from getting easy takedowns where he's able to wrap the body and throw guys around a little bit to, it gets later in the fight. And when he starts going for those takedowns, guys start retracting the leg. They start sprawling out on his attempts. He doesn't look as clean in those exchanges. So for me, the problem that I have with Smith is like the youthful exuberance could get him in trouble in this fight, right? You'll remember in the Vince Morales fight twice, he nearly had the back and he's like going for the choke before he puts the hooks in, falling over the top, giving opportunities to Vince. And that was a very close fight. It played out, pretty competitively. And I believe, I'm going back to look, but I thought I remembered betting Vince Morales in that fight. I guess I didn't. Maybe I just picked him in my article, but I thought it was going to be really competitive because I was like, Vince is going to throw up submission attempts if you're going to wrestle with him. And on the feet, I just felt like Smith wasn't going out there and blowing guys away if he couldn't knock them out. Like, he can land powerful shots, but there's times where he's kind of, following his opponents with his footwork rather than cutting off the cage. Things that I do believe, you'll see improvements over time. And I appreciate the fans of the show and everybody showing love and respect. God bless. But the thing about Smith that I just worry about is those decisions that he makes in the grappling, those panic shots at times where normally he could bail himself out because of the composure and the things like you mentioned. I just feel like Su Young Yu does present some interesting problems. And the thing about Elijah Smith that I will just say is like my hesitance with him as a prospect, I felt like he kind of took off the second round in both of his UFC fights where, he goes out there, he starts hot, he does his thing. And then in round 2, he kind of tapers it back and, lets his opponents kind of get back into it. I don't like that just in general. I want my guys to go out there, shut the door. Don't give guys the idea like, hey, I could get back into this. I could win this fight. Vince Morales, I'll just remind people, ended the fight with like a very weird modified rear naked choke locked in. It was the second submission attempt he had in that fight. So I think Elijah Smith is going to get caught in a submission at some point in his young career, and it's going to be a wake-up call like, oh, I got to be a little bit more disciplined. I got to make some better decisions in these positions. I think Yu has a possibility of pulling that off, and it is a big number. So that's the one thing that I would say when I'm looking at, maybe I don't want to have Yu if this goes the full 15 minutes because he's going to be wearing some damage and he's going to be slowing down in that third round. The takedowns are going to be telegraphed. But I think you could say a little bit of the same thing about Smith in that toes him up fight. Some of the shots late were getting a little desperate. They were getting a little ugly. And against most guys, it's not going to be a problem. But I do think Yu is a guy that's more than happy to engage in the jiu-jitsu. And a lot of the guys he's been fighting, they've simply not been able to offer much competent resistance. He's just been taking them down, getting to some dominant positions, or holding them down quite easily. AJ Cunningham, I will note, though, was able to throw up a triangle, did have an attempt of his own. So, both these guys show a little bit of vulnerability.
That
but
complete bum, AJ Cunningham?
Yes, but Cunningham is one of these guys with long legs, a little bit awkward. He didn't come close to finishing it, I will note. But he had it locked up for about 20 seconds. So I think that Yu is a guy that makes better decisions in the grappling. That's the way I would summarize it. But he's not as physical. He's not as dynamic. On the feet, I think Elijah Smith hits much harder. So those are the X factors of this fight. And, Smith has been paying off as a favorite. So God bless him. I think you being a dog as a 3-0 fighter in the UFC, that does say a little something as well. The odds makers, I think, have some respect for Elijah Smith. So I'll probably just lay off this one unless I get involved with the prop market. And I will be curious about the fight not to go in this matchup because both these guys have been going to decision. But you watch some of the fights and it's like Yu is in a lot of dominant positions. He's putting guys in bad spots. And Smith has been in some crazy ones, where he's landing big shots. He's coming forward, putting hands on guys, and also shooting himself into weird positions, getting into some crazy scrambles, trying to jump on guys' backs right away. So it just feels to me like the dam could break for either one of these guys and they get that finish.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's 3-0, but he's 3-0 against road to UFC guys and AJ Cunningham. And then the thing that you mentioned about Smith, I agree. He has been in bad spots. He has shown immaturity at times, but when you're a 23-year-old kid, like you mentioned, his dad's, a former fighter, like these are the things you go back to the film room, you go back to the practice room, you iron these details out, you come back better. I feel like we're going to be seeing these incremental improvements every single time. And the maturity is going to start to level up too as he starts to feel comfortable, get that octagon time in. So yeah, I'm on Elijah, and I think he puts a beating on Su Young. Now, last but not least, we got a rematch in the strawweight division, my friend, because Piera Rodriguez, who's 11-2, is taking on Sam Hughes, who's 11-6. Currently, they got a Piera minus 140. The comeback on Sam is plus 120. Both women 33. Sam 2 inches taller at 5'5", and she's got a 1-inch reach advantage at 64.5 inches of reach. So, I mean, the first time they fought, I didn't think it was controversial. I didn't think anything like that. I just simply felt like, it was a competitive fight, but Piera Rodriguez just kind of outclassed her. Almost double her up on strikes, which is hard to do because Sam Hughes fights at a relentless pace, but then also got 5 takedowns on top of it. But with the state of judging in MMA, and again, you don't know which one of them is waking up on the wrong side of the bed. It could be a split decision either way. But I think that Rodriguez is going to outclass her again. I feel like if you're a young prospect who hasn't paid dues and isn't ready for the UFC level, those are the kind of people that Sam Hughes is going to absolutely expose, because you must be on a certain level to compete and to beat Sam Hughes. But I've seen Rodriguez do both, and I like the evolution in her game. A lot of respect for Sam Hughes, but I feel like she's more of a prospect tester, whereas Rodriguez, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, to quote Brandon Moreno, maybe not in a year from now. No, but in all seriousness, I think she could be in the top 15 one day. I'm not going to say champion like Brandon, but I think she could be a top 15 fighter one day. And Hughes, I just kind of see her being a gatekeeper to, is this prospect legit or ready right now or not type ordeal. So for that reason, I'm going to take Rodriguez via decision again.
Well, I'm going to largely agree with you. The thing about Rodriguez, I would say, if you wanted to talk about what have both of these women improved since the last fight, because I think that's the most important factor, I think Piera Rodriguez has gotten better at holding women down. Before that last Sam Hughes fight, it was just horrific how she was letting Sam Hughes up with impunity. It was like she was trying to pass the guard so much that she was just standing up off her, and Sam was like, okay, I'll stand up again. Sam Hughes does have a good get-up game. She doesn't just settle on being on her back, but it still was like, man, Piera Rodriguez could do a better job if she just went, forehead into the chest, like drive her down, keep your elbows in tight, just like simple stuff to hold somebody down and to start passing the guard a little bit more methodically rather than just rushing the process. Then you see against Knudsen, she gets more takedowns and she's able to control the fight for like 10 minutes out of 15. That's a huge improvement, right? Actually translating it from, hey, I'm getting takedowns to now I'm taking people down, I'm camping on top, I'm holding them down, I'm passing the guard, I'm getting more aggressive in that way. And Rodriguez, I think, earlier in her UFC career was too aggressive, would get to positions, try and open up with ground and pound, give them an opportunity to like reverse out of the mount and certain things like this. I think now she kind of understands the value of position a lot more, and she's trying to stay put in these positions, get her hips on top, be more dominant physically. And I think that's a huge advantage for her in terms of what was she able to do to Sam last time? Take her down over and over. But what did she do? Not make, a great use of that takedown each time. I think in this fight, she can be more effective with that. The thing I will note, though, on the Sam Hughes side is that in that last fight, Sam was starting to pick up the pace, and she was the girl who clearly had better cardio. When we've seen things kind of go off the rails for Piera Rodriguez, it's normally late in the fight, and that is the counterbalance of this fight. It's like Piera Rodriguez, better wrestler, better athlete, and I do think Sam Hughes is a solid athlete, but I do think there's a little bit of levels. I think physicality-wise, Piera just stronger and a better wrestler. So she's going to get her to the ground again, in my opinion. But if Sam is able to keep doing that same thing, working that same pace, getting back up, Sam Hughes is like 27-1 to win this fight in the third round. And I know she normally just wins by split decision, but she finally broke through, got that UFC finish. She's a girl that has made some improvements in terms of her technical abilities over time. And she is a girl that is extremely aggressive. She'll cheat to win. She'll do anything. So, go back to that Jacqueline Amorim fight. She's reaching in the gloves, doing anything to survive. And then she's able to turn that fight around. So I do think Sam Hughes, she's another one of these people that's like a junkyard dog. And from a live betting perspective, I think Sam Hughes is a better bet live than pre, because I think she's going to lose the first round at a pretty decent clip in this fight and probably give up 2 takedowns and 3 minutes of control or something. Honestly, if you're just gauging my opinion here. But as the fight goes on, I think that's her chance to win it, is to take over as it gets deeper and as Piera Rodriguez starts to make worse decisions and panic a little bit. She goes from being the aggressor to starting to be a little bit more on the back foot and being willing to kind of take the back seat in the fight and try and coast a little bit if she gets tired.
Well, Liam, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle. The fans can follow you at Liam Picks Fights. Liam, any message for the fans?
I will say the same thing that I always say, which is God bless, good luck, and enjoy those fights always. I appreciate you having me on, my friend. If you guys don't mind, go ahead and show some love. Hit the subscribe button. Drop a like right now. Drop a comment for our guy as well. Tell him I sent you. It would mean the world to me. And other than that, nothing to say, but I'm hoping to do well on this fight card, my man. I've been digging deep in the trenches on fights like this first fight of the night that not very inspiring as a fan, but I'm really looking to try and get my reads dialed in this week after a tough week last week. So let's do it, my man. Bruno, Silva, dogs unite, and let's see if we can get them dogs barking this week, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you to all the fans. Thank you, Liam. Happy 3/11 day to those that celebrate. Definitely bump some 3/11 today. It's March 11th, so y'all know the drill. Hey, do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, because once we hit 15K subscribers, one of y'all is getting a free UFC 322 poster signed by the entire card. Then once we hit 25K subscribers, one of y'all is getting one of my favorite pieces from my collection, which is a signed UFC glove from UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping. And then once we hit 50K subscribers, I'm taking one of y'all out for a Brazilian steak dinner in Atlanta, Georgia on me. So hook me up and I'll hook y'all up. Thank you so much to the fans. Thank you to the GOAT Meticulous. Thank you to my guest, Liam, my friend Liam. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.